Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to another Handshake Mastermind. And I'm SkyInclude or Mike Michelini. Well, actually, Ann is SkyInclude. Thanks, Ann, for helping, as always, behind the scenes, making things happen. And we have with us co-hosting today Paul Webb, or do I call you Area 51 Alien, or how do I address you, Paul? How'd
Hey,
you?
hey, man, whatever you want.
All right. I know we all have handshake names and real names, and there's a whole bunch of anonymous people, so I always wonder how to address people. But yeah, thanks for coming up today and helping us out today. How you doing?
hmm Fantastic. It's a nice sunny day here in Cupertino, California. It's 5 p.m. for me, so yeah,
Nice.
just loving the ambiance, the good weather.
Yeah, 7 a.m. Friday morning for me here in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and the sun. They don't follow daylight savings in Asia, so I think that's mostly a U.S. thing. So the sun comes up
hmm
really early, like this time of year. So the sun is up. It's like bright at like 6 a.m. or something. So been up for 3 hours already, actually. 4 a.m. It's cool. Cool. Preparing for the spaces today. So we have, Anne helped us prepare a list, and I've been trying to keep up with it. I've been trying to keep up with all the amazing chat. Also, shout out to Save the Doctor. I see him in the room. We of course welcome people up on stage. I saw some voting initiatives put together. So the list I have is, and Paul, you can add as well, but the list I have, HNS Chat came out with iOS app, which is great. I know a lot of people want the app. HNS Call is integrated with HNS Chat. Nathan has pushed out Fire Wallet. Seen a lot of updates there. And Miguel at Pencil Domains has put out a new style of wallet. And Chango, I saw your comments, Paul. I haven't seen it myself yet, but Chango just represented Handshake at the Decentralized Domain Summit, which looked awesome. It's like an hour-long recording. And I believe these are all going to be, Anne's been pinning these on the spaces, so if you want to refer to any of these. But how's that list look for you, Paul? Do you have other items? Of course, there's a
Sounds,
hard fork discussion and the
yeah,
voting, maybe.
yep. Sounds good to me. The only thing I have is just making the case for just like more content for Handshake to talk about the site I released recently, handshakeready.org.
Okay. Also, yeah, you guys remind me of content. I think Meg's Machine is doing some great interviews with different community members. I've seen him pushing out a lot of those the last week or two, so that's great. Maybe if we can pin those in. Okay, but yeah, I'd love to hear about him. Maybe you can start with that. Let's hear about Handshake Ready. Do you want to give us your story about it and
Oh yeah. So yeah, handshakeready.org, it came about just from kind of frustration from just like seeing in the discords, the telegrams, just pretty much every place where we get people new and old to Handshake asking things like, when are we getting browser integration? How come the token price isn't like high? And saying, oh, we should do this, we should do that. And it's like we we keep going through this over and over again. I know I have spent a lot of time writing long responses to people, but I mean, Discord is not a place where you can just search for content, so I can't just copy and paste and whatnot. So I figured I would make a website, something people can point to and uh, find where, like, I guess, consolidate all my thoughts in one place. So, regarding the Win browser thing, uh, we've had discussions with Brave before, Dave. claimed their name on Handshake. They got the tokens. They probably sold them. Um, and like integration talks with them broke down for various reasons. But something that I believe it was Matt Zipkin pointed out, he looked in the source code of Brave browser and saw the, and I'm using air quotes here, integration for, it was either unstoppable domains or .eth, but it was basically like 12 lines of code that effectively was like, if domain extension equals .etf, ETH, redirect the query to infura dot something, like just some uh, Web 2 portal to do something with this specific TLD. And
Yeah.
that's very easy for .eth or any derivative of ENS because it's not DNS. So
Yeah.
when people go like, "Oh, Win browser," like Handshake is totally different, and it's easy to make comparisons to other blockchains. Like, "Oh, they can do this, they can do that." Like all of those things are derivative of some form of ENS. So it's just forks upon forks upon forks upon forks, and that's pretty much what's like supporting DeFi
Yeah.
right now. So it's like, what the fork? like,
Yeah.
because
No, I
it doesn't make sense, but people don't have that knowledge or perspective, so they continuously beat this drum like, oh, we're not going to go anywhere if we don't have browser adoption. Like, yes, that's a part of it, but you have to understand what goes into it. For any browser that wants to integrate Handshake, they need to have people on staff to rewrite significant portions of the browser in order to support Handshake. They most likely have to host and support their own full nodes. Like it's not something you can just haphazardly just go, oh, if it's a non ICANN TLD and it's not a .eth, make it go to some other portal. Like it's that defeats
yeah.
the purpose. So that's the Win browser question. The
Yeah, no, I know. Go ahead
Yeah,
when you're ready.
so
Yeah.
the whole like when does the token price like go up? Like how do we make the token price go burr? Uh, Again, like you can make comparisons to other tokens, but like Handshake has utility. It's not just DeFi stuff. So the value in Handshake doesn't come from the token, it comes from the utility. It's the idea of, oh, we can have Web 2, but with cooler TLDs without spending millions of dollars in 10 years, like Chango mentioned in that hour-long video earlier. We don't have to do all that. We can build dope shit for the web in a considerably less amount of time. Um, and to, I guess, make a comparison to the original blockchain, Bitcoin, their token price is super high right now because it has demonstrated that it provides value. When it first came out, the token price was pennies. Like someone bought pizza with a lot of Bitcoin at that time, but it was worth like $20. So I feel like a lot of people are super impatient, especially when they compare Handshake to other Ethereum forked blockchains because they are able to inflate their token price very quickly in a short amount of time because it's kind of like built on FOMO culture. And FOMO culture does not exist in Handshake in the same way because it's slow, it's proof of work, it's infrastructure, it's not sexy. money is sexy, which is why it
Yeah.
flies so fast. Like we are the construction workers, and some of us are the construction workers looking at the woman in a dress walking by, going like, "Damn, I wish I had that. Hey, why don't we have that over here?" Like it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the best analogy, kind of misogynistic,
I mean,
but
the
yeah.
way, yeah, the way I think is Andrew Lee that said it. I think Rob once or twice, and maybe HandyCon too. But he says that Handshake came out already like as a product working,
Hmm.
whereas I don't want to say generalize Ethereum, but just many other crypto or Web3 or blockchain projects come out without a product, and then they're like everybody's buying into we call it FOMO, or the hype of
Hmm.
what the product will be when it comes out. But the job of Handshake when it came out was I guess you could say integration or adoption. It wasn't about building it. It was, or of course, there's been updates on chain and such, but it was core functionality was there when it came to mainnet. I like that. He's it's almost human nature. People like to buy something or invest in something before it comes out because there's this. I think that maybe I don't want to say helps or doesn't help, but some people like to kind of buy the hype because it's just like Christmas, right? When you're all excited about your Christmas gift
Hmm.
or Christmas day, and then it comes and I don't want to say you're disappointed, but usually it's not like as maybe nice as you had thought. Of course, I enjoy my Christmases, but there's that the leading up to Christmas is almost more fun than the actual Christmas or any kind of holiday generally, right? Because you're like preparing for it and talking about it and getting excited about it.
Hmm.
So I kind of like that, but I got a few responses to your different points. So that was the last point. Yeah, of course, the when browser was a painful experience for a lot of us in the community. We luckily have, you know, moved along, but yeah, I mean, I think Zipkin's talk. I was at NamesCon, and I think I took a clip or two of it from in SkyInclude videos. But yeah, he points to I think one was unstoppable as well, and it's like a couple, 2 or 3 lines of code. It says like refer to brave.ud something.io or something like this.
Hmm.
I can't recall, but yeah, it's just pointing to that. But even within Handshake, though, I do want to kind of like I don't want to pick on Handshake, but just mention that Handshake does have these kind of easy ones, or has a lot of people, especially in other communities, pick on maybe Handshake for being somewhat centralized, but it can be centralized. We could also do that. Handshake could integrate into Brave or Opera with a centralized resolver like UD or ETH might do. But
Yeah, but
there's
it
always
would
these
like
debates
defeat the
with yeah,
purpose
these
of it.
debates within the community. Exactly, like especially you mentioned Matt Zipkin, he would I think, whenever we talk about browser integration and involve him, he wants it to be done the right way, or what's the point? And
Hmm.
he brought up about, we did a SkyInclude channel with him, talk about, if there's no security, what's the point? Or something like this. Like he says, why
Exactly.
do it if, why just rebuild the current Web 2 on Web 3 if what's the point to pump our bags, to,
Hmm.
sell SLDs, to just say we're in Brave, to say we're in Opera, so that our coin or our TLD or our SLD will go up in value. But
And
he,
yeah, and
yeah,
token price is temporary. A lot of people have been saying for the last couple weeks, like, oh, we need to burn the tokens for inflationary things and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to pretend I understand tokenomics. I actually do not care. Um, I find that kind of talk above my intellect level because money, just US money, is confusing to me. So crypto money, I'm just like, I buy tokens when I need them and then I use them. That's pretty much what I do. But like
I guess. Okay.
but like the talk of just like, oh, we need to do this thing, or Handshake's dead. We need to have like a high token price. It's just like, so let's say we do all of these things that people claim that must be done for Handshake to like survive, quote unquote. How long is that going to last? And when that high runs out, what's the next thing we do? Like, That's
Hmm.
something I don't think people think about much. It's just like nothing stays high forever without
Yeah.
actual utility, actual reason for the price to be high. Handshake lacks
Yep.
infrastructure right now, and Nathan Woodburn recently released something that makes it very easy to spin up a WordPress site, but you still have to be kind of technical to know how to use it. Like we need more normie things where just like they sign up somewhere for an account, they click a button, the WordPress blog is there, and then they can just fill out like title, whatever, write their blog post from this from a website's UI. I think
Yep.
like when we have a lot more things like that, where I can tell my grandmother or my aunt, just like, oh hey, just go here, do that, and you're done. As that gets normalized, I think the purpose of handshakeready.org will kind of like take a back seat because we will be ready.
Yeah, I like that. I don't want to start promoting Bluehost. I'm not using Bluehost, but I remember Bluehost was kind of like a breakthrough with WordPress in general, or even blogs in general. I remember a lot of YouTube tutorials. I think of Pat Flynn. Um, you just plug in, because even installing WordPress open, the open source WordPress.org, it wasn't really being utilized. I think up until I really do believe it was at Bluehost. You just, well, I use that for many years back, way back, but you'd sign up for like $5 a month, maybe pay a year up front, and then you can just install unlimited WordPress websites, and then just point unlimited domains to WordPress. Of course, there's security issues, and you have to update it, et cetera, et cetera. But
Mm-hmm.
people were just creating WordPress like super fast and unlimited plans, and I think that's when it really started to break those out. And then I also go, you know, Andrew Rosner. I remember a podcast I listened to of his where he talks about he loves Shopify. He says Shopify is the best solution for domainers. Uh, as a domainer, he says because it's Walmart, Walmart also, but even Amazon is kind of a competitor to domainers because if you're on a marketplace, you don't need a domain name.
Mm-hmm.
But he says Shopify kind of saved or helped boost up, especially that was during coronavirus was at the peak. I remember I listened to that, and he's saying that all these people are coming because they're getting Shopify sites to do e-commerce, but they need a domain name, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I've said on these spaces before, I think mass adoption and Handshake will come when Web 2 is more and more censored. I mean, I've seen these articles. I don't know enough. I can't recall enough, but like, isn't something like .org, .net, or .com or one of these going to be like any country in the world can censor a domain if they send a notice to whether it's VeriSign or ICANN? I can't recall. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but it just looked really horrible, and people were sharing this a bit on Twitter a month or two ago. It like kind of got passed between ICANN meetings. I
Yeah.
don't know if you know what I'm talking about,
Yep.
but
Chango mentioned it in that summit
oh, she
or
also
ICANN
mentioned
video.
it. Great.
Yeah, and then she asked for a show of hands of if anyone in the room, full of ICANN folks, by the way, has if anyone read it. Only one person raised their hand. So, uh, I
Oh,
it blew my mind. Uh, so
well,
I think that goes to show that most of ICANN, at least from this small sample size, they don't really care about censorship resistance. They're just like, okay, we think things are good the way they are. And a couple of them said that, like, yeah, I am satisfied with the ICANN process, which is another thing Chingo asked. And most of the room laughed because they were just like, ICANN process kind of needs some work. So it's just like,
yeah,
here's why Handshake is a useful kind of project.
exactly. And then to bring it back to earlier about, like browser integration and what and like say somebody wants to censor a website that's on ETH or Unstoppable, or if Handshake was integrated through a centralized resolver, you just take out that resolver.
Mm-hmm.
It's just once week. So that's what I think a lot of us, myself included, I think it definitely seems like you. We don't want to just integrate for the sake of integrating. We want to do it through Dane. We want to do it through secure. We want to do it like decentralized so that there's no weak. That's the whole point of like Bitcoin or blockchain. I think at least for most the real OGs, I'd say, or at least I consider them real users. Why replicate Web 2 on a blockchain that can just be taken down from one centralized resolver? It seems like a joke. And that's what a lot of these current quote unquote Web3 domain service do,
Yep.
and it just seems like no point. Might as well stay on ICANN system. Why would I need that then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I keep going back to Chingo because she made so many great points. I was writing things down like, oh
Yeah,
wow,
she's really
that's
good.
so good.
Yeah.
She is such a good steward of Handshake and Cosmos and is able to, on the spot, articulate answers to what initially seems like complex questions to me. And then when she explains, I'm just like, oh, yeah, duh, I could have answered that. But would I have been able to answer it on the spot? Maybe not.
Yeah, no,
Some,
I was actually lucky. I got to meet her in Bangkok. I went down to Bangkok to meet her while she was through Thailand, which is awesome.
yeah,
But yeah, go ahead, sorry.
she mentioned, wait, I wrote it down over here. Um, ah, well, I guess I could say 99.9 repeating percent of Web3 domains are vanity names because none of them
Mm,
resolve. They're just there to make wallet addresses look appealing. And to their credit, a lot of Web3 companies admit this fact. They're just like, yeah, it's just for our little community, for our little project. And excuse me, it seems like most people are fine with that. So uh, I forgot where I was going with that. But yeah, so that's, I guess,
I think it's
another
just like
way.
usernames or DIDs. I mean, I think there's two main buckets of the use case of blockchain names. It's like identity or websites, and it seems like I would say it's pretty clear. .eth is all about username, wallet address. I think most others are like you're saying, kind of like username, vanity name, wallet address. Like I mean, I guess it is a use case. I don't want to I don't want to show this guy, but Ben.eth. I mean, it's a pretty good use case, right? He just says send ETH to Ben.eth, right? I mean, I haven't done it. I mean, but he can just say it on his Twitter, right? And he can get millions of dollars
Man,
because people can just type three-letter .eth and send it to him from anywhere, or those that wallets that support it. But I mean, I don't even think I was actually curious to look if he's put a website on there, but I bet Ben.eth is not a hosted website or anything. There's a couple like Nick.eth, I think, and Vitalik.eth. I think there's a couple but I think don't they redirect to IPFS or something? And but yeah, most are just using I think his wallet or username.
hmm very bespoke experiences versus
Mm,
like what we are trying to do, which is be a more secure DNS. And like,
yeah,
so we are essentially um, kind of rebuilding Web 2, going back to like Web 1.0 basics.
mm,
So, like, kind of like splintering off, or as it's been said many times before, being a soft fork.
yeah, soft fork.
So,
Yeah,
maybe building upon like a Web 1.5, like we see what the internet has been like, just like for the past decade. It's just been like user data has just been gobbled up, openly being sold to the government and whatnot. And it's
yeah,
just like we don't have to do that. So
exactly. Yeah, no, I think we're on the same page. I joke say say it all, even in my e-commerce talks and such. I prefer MySpace over Facebook and
Yes.
eBay over Amazon. Yeah, I learned a lot with MySpace. I know people think I'm some kind of pedophile stalker when I say MySpace, but I learned a lot on there. I learned how to do some CSS,
We all
HTML. I could
did.
customize my own.
Everybody did.
Yeah,
Nobody was a coder until they went on MySpace and was just like, wait, how come this account has a cool animated
yeah, you remember that,
background?
right?
Where did they
Yeah,
get that from?
yeah,
Oh, how come my music player isn't like that? Oh man, I gotta view
yeah,
source.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
if I were to tell anybody, any adult walking around, like, hey, do you know how to view source in your browser? I would get blank
Yeah,
stares. They're just like, what? Who are you? Why are you
exactly.
asking me? Are you with the feds? Why are you asking me about my browser? Like, people would be so confused. But that's what we all did. It was normal to code. And now it's just like, no, we don't want to give people autonomy. We don't want to give
Exactly.
people a way to customize their presence on our
Exactly.
service. This is our service. They don't have rights. They don't
Exactly.
have individuality. Like, oh man,
Exactly.
I could go on, man. I miss
Yeah,
that time so
there was
much.
normal users. There was like, yeah, there was like, there was, of course, I guess that was one of the issues of MySpace, it seems, is there was like older people going after younger, but there was like people all ages, and we were all learning how to like customize our pages. And yeah, I remember I learned so much. And I used that on my own websites. I would learn that experimentation on my MySpace profile to then improve my website or start to learn a website.
Hmm.
And eBay was the same. I had to make my, it still is like that. You have to make your own listing page and HTML and your page builder. Of course, you could just put plain text, but you had to learn how to like kind of customize the design. And yeah, I think you and I are on the same side of like we want to have ability to customize and personalize. But it seems like the majority of people want the Amazon where you just upload a pretty photo and write text, or Facebook, you can't even do anything on your Facebook. You just put a picture or a video, right? There's no creative.
So,
Of course, you get creative, I guess, in the picture or in the video, but the actual display of it in that interface, you have no control as a user.
so I wonder actually if it's really that it's not so much that people don't want to customize, it's that they have forgotten that we used to have that capability, or they just don't know.
I don't know. I think that yeah, it's true because there was normal people. Like there was like no, I guess normal people would just learn how to use MySpace and customize it. Maybe. But then, Facebook came, but I think people maybe preferred Facebook over MySpace because it was so standard. I just still feel like people like the display of Amazon or Facebook. They look very similar. They're just like a small logo, white background, like pictures. It's very boring. But I think people maybe didn't like the diversity of all these other, eBays and MySpaces and such. People like this kind of boring vanilla, like
I think
interface
I
is kind of
think
what I
the
think.
pendulum might be swinging back the other way finally, because
I hope so.
because
Yeah.
the design of the web right now, and I've railed about this for so long, it's very Fisher Price, Tonka truck, just like
Yeah.
sterile, large
Yeah.
border radius. It's just too much spacing, as if we're in like a padded room, insane asylum. Like, oh, we can't let the users hurt themselves
Exactly.
on 90-degree
Yeah.
corners. Like, it's very
I know.
ugh, whack.
I know. It's so boring, it's really boring. And but the way I see the Web3 is, yeah, your username is your website, and it's like your wallet. I think it could be hopefully both. I know it's hard to do both, especially at the same time for any kind of protocol or project.
Mm,
But I see a world where my name is my domain name, and it's like my MySpace profile page or whatever, and then instead of it, yeah, people could just go to that like quote unquote MySpace profile. That's your Web3 domain that has your NFTs, and it has your content, and it has your blog, and it has your friends, and it interconnects them. But it's not like through a centralized Rupert Murdoch owned MySpace that could just destroy it. Because also he destroyed my profile. He bought News Corp bought MySpace and just destroyed it. I don't even know what. I mean, there's like YouTube documentaries about it, but he destroyed it, right? I don't know. I guess he tried to make more money out of it or something. But yeah, I mean, so the Web3 is they no like News Corp or Facebook or Google or Zuckerberg can't buy this and just destroy it or change it. It would be my
Thankfully.
web page. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if that's the world I think we're trying to build here, right?
Yeah, I see Handshake as a way to get back to what we used to have and right the wrongs that we kind of fell into.
Mm.
One of the
Web
reasons
two.
why MySpace failed is because the site was just having so many issues and they were not fixing them enough. And then Facebook was invite only. It was the hot new thing. They kept adding features that MySpace lacked, and so that's a whole nother can of
Yeah, I
worms
mean,
that they fell into. But
yeah, I think obviously Mark Zuckerberg is a very talented developer, and they made it very scalable, like you said. And
mhm.
I remember there was downtime, and I think it's also really hard to migrate. I'm not so technical, but whenever there's some kind of migration, I know it's a huge nightmare. I think they never might were able to migrate off some kind of PHP or something. Yeah, but maybe we go back to our agenda and talk about some of the stuff that's being built on Handshake, like I mentioned at the beginning. So HNS chat, Eskimo, he's always building. I know there's some people have their opinions about each other in the community, but he's building, so I appreciate that, and thank you, Jordan or Eskimo. There's an iOS app, so there's hns.chat or hns chat on a Handshake, and you can get this on your iPhone now and log in with your Handshake name and chat there. I think Android's coming. I'll be honest, I can't still disclose, but I hope to announce a pretty amazing project I'm working on. But so I've been really deep into that. But I did recall him saying Android. I'm an Android user. I think that's even why my Twitter Spaces crashes all the time because I'm an Android. But I still prefer Android. I think he's also working on Android. Or do you have any comments on this, Paul?
No, only that the name server or stuff that I'm using right now prevents me from logging into HNS chat because I'm
Oh
using
no.
bind on Caddy and it's just not working properly. But once I get my new my new name server up, I should be able to go in and test out HNS chat in the iOS app.
Awesome. Okay, great. Next on the list, HNS Call. I believe Nathan Woodburn project. Another great builder has integrated with HNS Chat, so you can do calls through HNS Call on HNS Chat. Do you know? I think Anne was inviting Nathan. Nathan, if you're here, you or others are welcome to come up. We also like to spotlight anything we're missing on this list. But that's pretty cool. You can also do a voice call with people through the chat. Is that, I hope I'm saying it correctly. Are you following this project integration, Paul?
Yep, I was looking at it on ooh, yes. Looking at it on Discord as it was happening in the Igloo software Discord, and I love that
Great.
it's it's two different products integrating with each other because there's obvious synergies there, and that's just going to make both products continue to get better.
Exactly. And it kind of saying like we were just kind of going on about MySpace and these different systems. Just kind of of course, this can happen in a Web 2 environment, but within this Handshake and ecosystem, two separate projects with different builders can integrate. So that's the beautiful thing I think about protocols and blockchains is open, especially Handshake is open source and people can build and integrate. It's really great. Fire wallet.
Oh,
Again, I'm so paranoid my
Nathan
phone's
is
gonna
up
crash.
here.
But is Nathan here? Okay,
Yep.
thank you, Nathan. Sorry, I'm just paranoid my phone's gonna crash, so I don't look at it while I'm doing this because it's crashed multiple times before for me on Twitter Space. Okay, Nathan, I'd love to hear from you directly.
G'day. Yep. So, well, on the last point, so HNS call is oh, I can't screen share, can I? Never mind. But basically, if you're in any of the chat channels, you should be able to just run .call, and it will just create you a room for you to just join in. So it's pretty simple, and it should be working unless it's crashed. Nope, it's still up. So have a test around and let me know if you want any changes in it, eh?
Great.
Yeah.
And can we get Fire Wallet too? Can we get some scoop on the Fire Wallet? I know you keep building on that.
Yep. So it's released, it's working so far. There are a few minor bugs, but all of them
Maybe a high level pitch, first for those that might not be familiar with the Fire Wallet, because I know it's still rather new.
Yep, of course. So we've got Bob, which is pretty much the only one that's available for a GUI. So Fire Wallet is a new Bob alternative that's built on .NET C#. So it's only works on Windows without a lot of hacky methods. So it is pretty smooth on Windows, so it's fairly quick. It is able to connect to your pre-existing Bob wallet, or it can run its own internal HSD node. You can also connect it to a remote node, and it now has support for ledger hardware keys. What other features are new? I'll have to actually check my list.
Great. That's awesome. Yeah. Thanks for all you do, Nathan. I really appreciate it. I know I'm inverse here, but I'm a Mac laptop and I use an Android phone. So all these late updates,
Oh,
I don't.
what?
Yeah, Android's the best though. iOS is like,
I wouldn't be using a Mac computer if they made me do everything through the App Store. But I think when they switched to Intel chips, I think that's when I finally started buying Macs. Before that, I didn't refuse to be like in a walled garden. So if iPhone would let me install like I don't want to jailbreak it, but if I can install apps without having to go to the App Store, I might consider iPhone. But I don't want to be in a walled garden. So Mac,
yeah.
I can just download a DMG and install it. If they didn't let
But
me
the
do that,
flowers are
I would.
pretty.
I mean, and honestly, the main reason I'm stuck on Mac is the productivity apps. I use Alfred. I use all these shortcuts and things like super fast, like keyboard shortcuts. If I could do that on Windows, I might go back. But that's my reasoning. I know it sounds weird, but that's my reasoning.
Hey, man, whatever
Well,
works, works.
yep.
Great. Any other things you want to share, Nathan, while you're up here? Or I don't know. Should
Well,
we talk about this hard fork? I know we've had a few chats and Save Doctor's done some great stuff. Maybe he can come and share. I guess before we get into the hard fork, I don't know if Miguel's around, but his pencil domains. I haven't had a chance to follow his latest announcements, but I guess that's also on my list. Does anybody here, or if Miguel's
Yeah,
here,
I
know
don't
what
see
it
him up
is?
here.
I saw him doing like a AR VR kind of registrar. That was like a video where he was like in the VR world and he's registering a Handshake domain, which looked pretty awesome on Twitter.
That sounds nuts. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a video he had made, but he's really deep in metaverse. I've had a couple calls with him. He's he's in metaverse. He's got like headsets and such. So I think he's gone down the rabbit hole of making like a app inside a metaverse where you can register a domain name in a VR environment, which looked pretty awesome. Okay. Well, pencil.domains is his main homepage for what he does. I think he might have put that on a separate site or such, but definitely try it out, what everybody listening, and give your support. So those are the product updates. The last, and we did already talk about Chango's Decentralized Domain Summit. Paul's been referring to it a few times, but definitely check it out. It's like a 1 hour YouTube video that just came out. I'm going to be checking it out soon. Just came out, I think, last 12 hours or so. So definitely everybody should check that one out. And thank you, Chango, for always representing Handshake. But then I guess, do we go into this whole discussion that could probably last for hours about hard forks and burn and not burn and all this? I mean, what do you think, Paul? You're here. Help me out today.
Yep, absolutely. It's good to keep such a topic last because it can go on for so long. Yeah, I feel like I've made my opinions about this known. I have come around to the idea of expiring the uh, coin reward for name claims simply because we've had a lot of reports from people saying that the reason why protocols like Tor and other companies won't accept the TLD is because of the token um, attached to it. So yeah, it seems pretty easy to decide like after all these years, just get rid of it, burn it, um, and then the rest. Uh, Obviously, keep all the ICANN names reserved forever because like we don't want to supplant the DNS. We want to extend it. So keep the existing stuff whenever they open a new GTLD round, well, we'll just figure that out when we get there. Um, and then just continue to reserve like the top 100 or 1,000 um, of like the top Alexa names. We should go through that list. I feel like there are a handful of sites that probably no longer exist anymore. Get those TODs out of there. But yeah, that's pretty much my high level kind of opinion on what should be done about the hard fork.
Okay. Um, yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot. I haven't been so vocal about it. So I guess I could just give my latest thoughts. I'm getting convinced. I guess I was more on the side of a foundation DAO, somewhat fund for the community. I'm starting to be open-minded to not doing such a thing, and the reasons are. I do agree. We don't want to recreate another unstoppable domains inside Handshake. So I could see such a DAO potentially becoming like a UD, which, I don't want to get into another UD discussion here, but I think one of the flaws is the centralization of their organization, right? So I think we don't want to create one where people are asking this foundation or this DAO for permission or for acceptance or for things, So
Mm-hmm.
that's my fear is we recreate another kind of like centralized entity inside of Handshake. Also, similar point, but creating an attack point. Obviously we're seeing all this regulations happening in the US with SEC, and they're able to attack those
Oh, I didn't even think
that have
about that.
something to be attacked. Whereas in Handshake right now, of course, they could try to go after like on Namebase or others, but there's not really it's kind of my favorite thing to reply in a Telegram group when somebody asks for who to talk to about listings or whatever. We don't have anybody because there isn't. So by creating a DAO or a foundation, then would create that, and then that could be getting a letter from the SEC or whatever. So maybe that is a blessing in disguise for us. And then the third is, I don't know if I really want to give these browsers the money that they want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know. I mean, we've especially Paul and I have gone back and forth over the years, and I'm glad we've made we've made amends on that. But I don't know if I want to give that, even if I guess if the community does, but then there will be all this debate about do we give them the X millions or whatever these guys or girls want. I mean, I don't know if I want that to go there. honestly.
I'm of the
So
opinion that we just take the route of be so good they can't ignore you.
exactly, that's the hard way,
So
but I'm that way too.
yes, yes, it is exceptionally hard. We have to build so much shit. We have to build so much infrastructure and have so many websites like great content, handshake exclusive content and experiences. But I think in the long run, we will be so much stronger because people will be in their browsers going to be like, whoa, why don't y'all resolve
Yeah,
handshake? Like they
exactly.
have like thousands of websites. The protocol is like so good. I'm like my site is super like dope now and ew.
Well,
I'm not going to
what
use
would
this
happen?
browser
Yeah.
anymore. I'm going to use this other
Well,
one.
what would happen at that point is if these legacy browsers don't adopt it, then the new browsers, which we don't even know exist or might exist, that do adopt it would
Mm-hmm.
win.
Just
Yeah.
just to touch on what's up, guys. Hope you guys are doing good.
Hey, what's
Love the
up?
conversation. So just to touch on this resolving part and adoption, what are your thoughts on kind of taking the approach of what ENS is doing with the dot box extension? They have, I'm not sure if you're familiar, it's my dot box where you can go in there and reserve your box, and whatever ETH name you have, apparently they'll give you the dot box, and dot box is an ICANN approved TLD. So I agree with a lot of what you guys said, but except for the part when you say you burn the tokens. To me, I feel like maybe there's some utility that we could use for those tokens, maybe even applying for an ICANN TLD, like .HNS. Now all our handshake names, I'm sure it's going to take a year, 2 years, maybe even longer to get something like that. But at least it's something that we can showcase to people. I sit in domain rooms all day in Clubhouse. Number one, what you guys are talking about is it doesn't resolve. I'm not going to invest in it. You guys are, you're selling a product that people don't really understand, and they're just, they're buying these domain names. Well, I don't really think a lot of that is true because, I mean, they haven't invested in it. First of all, they're just coming up with this. This is their mentality because it threatens their model as well. I'm talking about some of the OG
Mm-hmm.
domainers, right? But I find it interesting. Like, has that ever been brought up, like to own the .hns on ICANN?
So, if that has, I know that we've been talking about, when it comes to the coins, there's two sets of coins that we're talking about. When it comes to the name claim coins, that's where we're talking about burning. Only the names that can't claim the names because of those coins. And another thing we've been talking about. Sorry that there's a lot of background noise. I'm traveling, so I'm actually in the car right now for this.
Yeah, it's choppy. It's a bit choppy right now.
Really, yeah, I'm in the middle of nowhere, Texas.
Okay.
So, but yeah, there have been conversations on that, but at least when it comes to like the FOSS Dev coins, um, I think that there's the big
That's it.
thing is these coins need to be kind of supported.
I mean, I have a pretty clear response to that. So I believe the ENS DAO, which is a 7 sig DAO, that's a Singapore registered company. I forgot the name of it. That's, Nick.eth is kind of like the main actor. I think Brantley was fired from that company. I think it's also a fundamental difference of Ethereum versus Bitcoin people, and proof of work, proof of stake. And, ENS is kind of obviously an Ethereum project and following the Ethereum ethos, just like it's like Vitalik. Um, where it's like, why not give these Web2 companies the money, and why not just work with the Web2 finance system and Web2 et cetera, where I think Bitcoiners, and I feel like more like a Bitcoiner than the Ethereum, but I'm not a maxi, but Bitcoiners are like, no, we're not going to cooperate with the banks, no, we're not going to cooperate with these other these legacy systems.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like Handshake is more like in that Bitcoin kind of ethos. It's a fork of Bcoin or Bitcoin. It's a proof of work. So I think that's where when we started talking about DAOs and using money for browsers, I think I was on the side of that earlier, and I'm kind of going on the other side lately. I hope it's okay to kind of change my side, but
I
Of
think that
course.
it just seems like it's there would be this centralized. So we'd have to register. Somebody had to register a DAO, like register a company somewhere, and then there would be contracts, and there would be to get into these browsers to get this ICANN thing. I think Brantley's been working on .eth register. I've seen some tweets. They're trying to get .eth as well in ICANN. And the way I think Ethereum is they try to kind of be integrating with Web 2 or the legacy, where I think Bitcoin is trying to disrupt it. That's kind of how I see the Ethereum versus Bitcoin.
Yeah,
And I,
Well,
I completely understand that, but when it comes to adoption, and you just go back to domain name, like just resolving domain names, right? I mean, if we're going to talk about resolving these names, the grandma forget grandma, mom needs to be able to know how to do this and to go through that 7-step process of changing your router settings, which I've done. I resolve at home. I love it. But the fact is that if that's one step and collect your HNS token, that's a lot easier to sell to someone than going to have them go through the 7 steps and and potentially be able to resolve something which they may or may not use. But I think some sort of incentivization in order to, what I'm talking about, right? When the 7 steps in order to change your router settings, those 7 steps,
yeah,
I think if we can, I know it's tough. It's as simple as possible, but for the average person to do those 7 steps, it's first of all the trust factor is not there, and then just going
hmm
through that to resolve a few names. I mean, they don't understand that they're going to continue to resolve what they do normally, as well as 11 million other TLDs. But that's a tough sell, a lot
I
tougher to.
agree.
yeah,
I mean, that's why I
so
think we're still
so I,
early, and we need the app. We need to kill. I think, Mike Carson was saying a lot. We need to that one killer app that's only working on a Handshake site, which I know is
and I think
maybe a
that's
Hail
where we
Mary
kind
or
of come,
something. But
kind of where I come
when
back
everybody
to.
wants that one app, they'll figure that out, or there'll be browsers, or there'll be hardware, there'll be phones, there'll be computers that have it that you'll buy that have Handshake support, like Intel support, Intel inside, Handshake inside. And people will
To,
buy.
I
I
want.
mean, that's like a Hail Mary. That's like the hardest way, but I mean, anyways, go ahead, save the doctor.
I was gonna, yeah, no worries. I was gonna ask, do we have to have a DAO if there are community tokens and the community is just voting? If we're not actually, there's no foundation, there's no like real
you need
entity.
some way to
Oh,
manage
I'm just
community
so I mean,
tokens. Like the community can't just do it
Illusion,
because people just
you're
put into
on.
their own wallets.
No, so Illusion, you're on. I'm curious if you can answer the question maybe more. Do we have to have like an official DAO LLC in this situation, or is that something we need
I
to
mean,
talk
I've
to
been
an
studying
attorney
this
on?
deeply because I'm also working on a project that might require a DAO. Just
Okay.
give that a little hint, but
I mean, I just
they
what I
need to
keep
have
going back to
something. At least at the
is
beginning, they need something. Maybe you can
mhm.
phase it out later, but I think at the inception there has to be some kind of a legacy and traditional entity.
Well,
I mean, I think Wyoming recognizes DAOs. There's also Marshall
they do,
Islands as DAOs,
they
recognizing
do,
DAOs.
yeah.
BVI is starting to recognize. You know, I guess U.S. is going to have their own regulations soon. Well, I mean, I guess it's on Wyoming already, but like maybe the whole
Hmm.
SEC will have some kind of way. But it's becoming more clear, but they all are companies, and then the companies act on
So
behalf of the voted DAO. That's how I'm studying it.
I
The DAO votes, and a company does what the DAO says. But look what Nick.eth did. He fired Brantley.eth, and the DAO didn't look like they wanted that, I think,
I
stuff like
guess where
that.
where I keep going back to and forget about the FOSS coins, forget about a DAO. How does the community outside of miners vote? Right now, there is no way, and that's where I keep going back to. You know, we have we're handshake ambassadors, but we don't have any say other than
Well,
that's where
it's a really good.
I don't care
There's a
about the
really good
coins for
talk
the
you should
DAO.
look into. David Vorik of Saya, or previous at Saya, had a really good talk. He sent me once. He spoke at some kind of event, and they had battle. It's true. The miners, even Bitcoin is the same. I mean, I guess we're like
But I guess where when it comes to the ethos and handshake, it's not the miners that are most important. It's the devs. It's the FOSS devs. If you look at the handshake.txt file or, that's on the handshake.org site, it's all about, the largest owner of coins will be the FOSS developers, not the miners.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I keep going back to, we need to have some kind of say on the user side. And that's where, I'm not saying we need a DAO, and I'm not saying we need coins. I'm not saying anything like that. I guess where I'm going back to is, how do we have a vote as a community that's on the chain that we can point back to and say, this is where the community wanted to go. And then there's also still bit 9 where the miners get to vote. The users are wanting to go this direction, the miners may not want to. And I guess that's where I'm at. I don't really care about the coins, about the FOSS coins. I don't think burning them is just the right solution. I think that's going to cause us to, artificially inflate the price of the coin, and then a bunch of people are going to dump and run. But that's
I guess I don't know if Paul has some thoughts, but I guess I'll just reply I
I
think it's the
had
main matter is, well, maybe maybe I just want to kind of I think the project was built working. The main discussion is the browser integration and maybe going to more developers. What is the use of funds? What would marketing? What's the use of these funds, and what's the decision is?
I'm
I
not.
guess it's this Alexa 100K and the burning of the what are the decision? What are the core decisions that the community or the miners need to make? I think it's about burning the current coins or not, or the reserve names. Is there other core decisions on the protocol? I think it's those two, right?
Not right now. I know there was some people that brought up, that there was some. I forget who it was. I forget who it was. Someone made a comment on a tweet. I'll look for that one. But those are some of the things. But I think we have no way. Like, even if we wanted to say, hey, we would like to decide this as a community, what we're going to do with those coins, we have no way to do it. And so we're at the mercy of the core devs to do, hopefully what the community wants. And right now our one core dev for blockchain is a name-based employee, right?
Yeah, no,
Anyway, we need more than just one core dev. But anyway,
I
that's
mean,
different.
there,
Sorry, hold on, I've got
there
children not
was,
listening to me.
we can go back to the HandyCon talk with Andrew Lee, one of the co-founders. And he's been on Twitter Space recently. But, his opinion, and maybe he's wrong. I don't want to put words in the mouth. You can listen to it yourself. But he's saying kind of the development is somewhat done of Handshake's core protocol. Maybe, and I'm not technical enough to answer that. But of course, there's maintenance needed, but I think in that video I got was that, but I do think he and the other and the founders we brought, that one of the last Twitter Spaces we brought, Meow, he seems like he was one in charge or one of the core architects of the airdrop for the FOSS developers. The way I summarized that last talk was he kind of could accept that airdrop was somewhat of a failure because of the low adoption or low claim rate. But and they did say this is an experiment, right? But I think their feeling was to reallocate those development funds to another kind of airdrop style community. It was how I interpreted their Twitter Space points.
I think they said that, or coming up with a new media for the kids. We're at a McDonald's.
No.
I'm gonna go outside.
Okay. I think.
okay. All right. So
Sorry. I think they.
Maybe okay, Paul's next, and then sorry. I'll go ahead and save Doc. You want to finish your point, and then
I was just going to bring up the point of what they did mention, looking at the experiment, maybe coming up with new ideas. So, but I guess where I keep going back to is, if say in a few years again, there's a change that needs to occur, that the community needs to vote on. I think there needs to be some way for us to have a say. That's where I'm going back to. I mean, even if as a community we vote and the FOSS coins get burnt, at least then the community feels that they all had a say in it and had some part in it, right? Not just
I agree.
That's where
I
I'm at.
agree. I don't know, Paul. Let's hear from you. What do you feel?
Yeah, I don't have any strong feelings on the tokens right now. I feel like that's uh, I feel like it's just going to be a lot of back and forth for a while. But I wanted to address something that King Singh mentioned
Yeah.
earlier. He brought up possibly using tokens to pay ICANN for a .HNS and then or .HNS TLD, and then we use that as our kind of like Web 2 portal into Handshake. And that actually sounds like a fantastic idea. The problem with that is there's no guarantee that we would actually get it. The way that the GTLD process works is, well, how it worked in the past is you would give ICANN 250K for the application fee. And that that is just for the like application itself. You also have to have lawyers look it over, and that's more out of pocket expenses. And then ICANN reserves the right to say,
Ex-
yeah, no, we don't see value in
yeah.
this. And then you are out
Exactly.
all that money. And I
Yeah.
can't
Exactly.
see why
I.
ICANN would approve of
It just
Yeah.
seems like against
something
the
I
like that.
whole
completely.
project's ethos, in my opinion. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like,
I
then why are
completely
we even
agree.
doing this? I might as well just get my
Well,
domain, the normal domains then.
Well, no, I mean, we continue to do what we're doing with Handshake, build on decentralized. It's for people that aren't able to access this side of the world, which is 99% of the current population. It's for them, to if it's just to showcase that, hey, this is what you can do instead of a double dot, it's a single dot. And just to answer that one, there's TLDs. I understand it's not going to be Handshake or .hns, but there's alternates that are for sale right now that are TLDs that can be used. Like ETH, for example, one of the projects that's being built on it. It's not by the DAO or anything like that. I'm not 100% sure about it, but the dot box extension, that's just someone that's just building on this, right? So that's what I
Yeah, I
felt
agree
like
with
just to
that.
show him. Yeah.
I mean, but we could look at the issues at ETH.limo. I think there was even a lawsuit for GoDaddy about the expiration of, maybe I'm wrong, with ETH.link or ETH.limo, not Link.
Yeah, it's
Maybe you,
ETH.link, yeah.
yeah, so there was like a whole lawsuit because the guy was in jail and couldn't renew or whatever. And I mean, it
Yeah, but
would be, this, it would,
that's a subdomain he was using, so it would be like a double dot. Whether that to me is very tough to sell. If you just do a single dot with just .hns or whatever extension, there's extensions that are available right now for 500,000. I'm not sure how much is available out of these tokens that are planning to be
I,
burned, but yeah.
I think someone said, maybe it was that Andy in Norway, or somebody says every TLD is a DAO. Like we could pool together a group of us to do that. It doesn't have to be the exact protocol. A community,
Oh,
obviously
okay.
we're in a bear
So,
market too, but when there was this bull market, there was all this discussion of that. And I think it was Steve Mackey that had a good tweet that says, that ETH is just, not sorry, Just, well, he did say Just, but it's just a DAO, one single DAO. And Handshake is infinite DAOs. Every TLD could be a DAO and could pick a community and could issue their own token like ENS. I mean, maybe it's because it's a bear market and the token's down, and even I'm a little bit demotivated. I'll be honest, but yeah, I mean it's hard in a bear, but in a bull, everybody's all excited, and we can all issue infinite tokens, infinite DAOs, infinite communities.
all right, Eskimo, you up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I was listening when you mentioned like the .hns, and that was owned by Johnny Wu and was included in the purchase of Namebase. So Namecheap owns .hns.
Well, HNS. Oh, that TLD.
Oh,
But I think he's talking about the actual ICANN
Yeah,
TLD.
but
yeah.
I mean, you're going to create a conflict on ICANN against a handshake domain. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't make much sense.
Well, I mean, this
Well,
would
if
be the exception, right?
we
If
would
we
use
own
it
that one
though.
and if you own both, this would be, it wouldn't really be a conflict, right? Because it would be kind of like one of
Well, it
those,
is. I mean, Namecheap
a
owns it
thousand.
unless Namecheap is going to be the one owning the ICANN TLD.HNS, then it would be a conflict.
Yeah, I think they would be open to it though. Like, I don't think Richard would see us or somebody go through the process of obtaining the ICANN TOD and just go, no, you can't use this one. Like, he doesn't
Oh
seem to be
yeah,
that type.
yeah. I don't disagree. I think that'd be a huge step for Namecheap in general, just to have a TLD, and then also a huge step for Handshake. I was just simply saying that like Namecheap owned it technically, so it would be hard to get it without having them on our side, you know.
But still, we're talking about $500,000. Yeah, is what I think King C said.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
So I mean, this is where I'm kind of going to, kind of. I was kind of supporting the foundation or DAO earlier, but this is the kind of thing. It would be just hard. I know we can put it on some like other blockchain to measure the votes or some kind of voting, but
I don't think we have to do that
I
though. I
don't.
mean, Eskimo and I have chatted a little bit about some ideas he had on how we could do this all on Handshake. I mean, I think we have time. I think the big thing that we need to discuss is, the soft fork is going to, they've got soft fork code that's going in, from my understanding, 7/1/2023. So in just a couple weeks. So, I mean, I know we have a lot to talk about when it comes to DAO and those coins and everything, but I want to point out that, we don't have a lot of time if anyone does want to try to discuss um, changing what they plan to lock, because right now it's just ICANN TLD's top 100 and the custom domains. So everything Alexa top 101 through 100,000 are all going to be, released into the wild on or around 1/31/2024. I think that's our more immediate discussion we might need to have. And then we can we do need to be having discussions on all this stuff for when they do the hard fork, because we're going to have to do a soft fork and a hard fork. There's no time to do a hard fork, um, between now and 1/31/2024, when those expirations, or not expirations, those the name claim expires. So just throwing that out there. I don't know if anyone has been thinking about that, but
Maybe put it on handshakeready.org, Paul, or some easy way for people to find this. But yeah, I do agree. So just to also reiterate what you said, there's two matters. There's the one that's coming in January next year, which is a soft fork, or what to do with these Lex 100K, because they will expire on or around January next year. So the core developers working on that first, and then anything about coins or other things would be at least 6 months after that, which would be next summer, 1 year from now. So yeah, you're saying let's focus on this soft fork January LX 100K discussion.
yeah, I just was throwing it out there. I mean,
No, I agree with
think
you.
we
I'm
have a
just
lot to
I'm
talk
just
about. Yeah.
summarizing.
No, thanks. Awesome. Yeah. And I did throw out a couple star vote polls. I know there's some confusion because I've missed some commas in a couple of the numbers and whatnot. So I don't know. I do, on the space that I have next week, I plan to talk about that a little more. But I don't know if anyone had any questions on any of those, or had anyone had any thoughts on the Alexa 101 through 100,000.
Okay. And we're about an hour and 15 minutes in so far, and I do think this is a valuable discussion. And I think there's getting to be more. I caught up with the Discord, the HNS Discord before this call. It seems like we're mostly agreeing that like Tor and others won't claim the name because they can't take the cryptocurrency, and I think there's probably others, and maybe others haven't even looked at it yet. So there's the burning the coin of the LX 100K. Not all the coins, but I think there seems to be consensus around this.
I think so.
I think there's of course, how do we have consensus with a vote? We could make it, but that seems to be agreed upon. But I think maybe the more sensitive part is: do we release? Do we reserve, lock forever, or some or all of these? Right. So the choices are of these Alexa 100K: release them to the wild for auction, reserve them and no one can get them, even those owners or who they're meant for, no one can get them, or continue to reserve some or all of those for a certain amount of more time or indefinitely. Is that the point? The different kinds of directions?
Yeah, I think when it comes to those, it's either we release them or we lock some, either a subset or all of them. I don't think we should do all of them. I think many people agree, but I think it's just kind of the thought that a couple of us have talked about. I know I've posted some data on it, but it's either we allow it to be open for auction, and that's going to be stuff like at least with the list, the current ranking, like Roblox is ranked 101, and that my kids play Roblox, so
Yeah,
those
mine
types things
too.
concern me a little.
Well, you could bid on it.
Yeah.
So lock means lock no one gets, or lock those owners still would be able to get. I just want to
So
clarify that definitely.
yeah, what's going to happen is similar to what it would be happening with the ICANN, et cetera. They would be locked until we do a hard fork. So no one would be able to claim those or bid on them, which is some concern that people have as well. So if someone tries to come claim their name and they can't because it's locked until October of next year, maybe they're like, well, screw them.
I still think it's better than someone else getting it, right? At least it's no one can get it for that time. If
Absolutely.
I think what upsets people is when I saw a comment from forget name Sheik. I know he's gone through a lot of hardship. James saw a tweet that he says some kind of ICANN or some kind of group is upset. Not ICANN directly, but somebody in the Web2's registrar space is upset because Handshake has sold 2 or 3 of their trademark names or something like this. I saw that recently. I don't know if Paul saw that, but we can't control it. The creators of the Handshake protocol tried their best to reserve any kind of conflicts, but yeah, I mean, I guess people get upset when someone else gets their name, right? But if nobody can get it, I guess, of course, they're not. I don't think they'll be so upset if they have to wait. They'll just be happy their trademark or their brand can't be used by someone else. But I don't think they'll be so angry, I think they're more angry when someone else gets it.
I think if they wanted the name, they would just buy the name. That's the way I look at it. The same way that they'll buy a Twitter handle if they want a Twitter handle, or buy a .com if they want a .com. If
Well, that's not
Caveat:
true,
if they
actually.
know about
There's all these
Handshake.
lawsuits and such about those things. That's what
you can
all
take the
these
Discord, for
registries
example.
do
Discord
deal
originally
with.
started with discordapp.com, and then they eventually bought discord.com. And if they wanted at Discord on Twitter, they'd buy that too. I just
Well,
think reserving
that's because
even makes much.
that's because their brand didn't exist when those things were created or something like this. There's lawyers that specialize in lawsuits about domain names and trademarks. And, in Circa, Tom Barrett is a common speaker about this at events. And those trademark holders don't like systems or platforms that don't respect their clients or their own trademarks. That's where it gets sticky. So if they see that we're not honoring their trademarks, they get upset, and they don't want to
I
pay
see
or can't.
this is completely different because we're talking about a TLD here, and I compared it to the same thing as if I were to launch a, whatever on, say, on an ICANN. If I launched an ICANN TLD, would I be expected to reserve, every Alexa name dot whatever as as a subdomain on it?
I
And that
think
doesn't make any sense. If
I I th- I think the way that works, and I'm not an expert on this, but there's called a honeymoon period, which allows trademark holders to maybe buy it or get it or lock it or something. It's called honeymoon period, I believe. I don't know. I know there's more experienced domain investors on this space, but when you
Sunrise.
is that a thing?
Sunrise,
I'm not
that's a
aware of
thing.
it.
That's what I believe, and Circa was guiding Forever Domains or others. If you look at some
Yeah.
PR releases, I think Tom did those, but there's like a sunrise period for domain trademark holders to claim their names before it goes to the wild.
And what
At a
is
certain
that? Is
amount of
that weeks, months, years? I mean, because at this point,
I don't know if
we're
there's a specific
approaching on,
template, but yeah.
approaching
Yeah, it's
on
obviously not
like
years, it's like months or
6
weeks. Yeah.
months.
yeah. So now we're talking about 4 years people have had to claim and they haven't claimed it. And this is a TLD, not an SLD, and they don't necessarily want a TLD. So
You
Well,
also have to keep in mind that not everybody knows what Handshake is. That's what I keep trying to point back to. Like, Handshake, we know about Handshake because we've been in it for the past 3 years. The rest of the world doesn't know. So when they go into Handshake and they're just like, what the hell? Someone's selling my company name. My company has been in operation for 20 years. Like, these are the kinds of people who might want a TLD that I think most people are talking about, not people who know about Handshake and don't care to get their name yet.
oh no, I understand completely. But what I've been saying is like, Apple and Google and people like that, they already have TLDs on ICANN, so they already have a TLD reserved on Handshake. No, nobody is saying that Amazon wants a TLD. Nobody says that Pornhub wants a TLD. Why would they want one? You know what I'm saying? Like they have their .coms, and that's what they wanted. If they wanted a TLD, they would just spend a couple $100,000 and just get a TLD. That's
Mm,
my.
I don't think Pornhub would, simply because of all of the issues that arose out of Triple X when that was coming out. So,
I just use that as an
like,
example. I think Aaron used that as an example name to me or something the other day.
right, right. But to continue using them as an example, the US, well, first of all, ICANN is very Western based, very US focused, I think. And so the way that just mature content in the US, it's very politicized, even though sex sells a lot in this country, it's like very conservative and hypocritical when it comes to like the enforcement side, and everybody wants to use child harm as their like Trojan horse to try and like subvert content for adults and companies like who are focused on adult content to do anything. So if I was a Pornhub or any sort of adult site, I would not want to go through the regulatory issues that stem from trying to get involved in the ICANN space just so I can get my own TOD. I would probably want something blockchain based for sure.
Oh, well, sure. But, so forget about Pornhub then. That was just an example used to me. Take Amazon, for example. Take Facebook. They don't have TLDs. Surely either Amazon or Facebook could afford a TLD, but they're not. Why not? The answer is probably just that they don't want one. They don't care.
Mm,
Apple probably just got it just so nobody else could. I've never seen Apple use it. I see Google use it. Like you can do like domains.google and get onto Google domains and so on. Google's using their
Apple
TLD.
does Apple does
fun.
use theirs. It's just not a lot of domains.
Like, do you know any of them? I've never seen Apple use theirs.
I
Um,
I do
yes,
I do feel
because
like
I
oh, go
work
ahead, go ahead.
there, but I don't have them off the top of my head.
I do
Do they?
believe, again, I keep
are
I keep
only like
bringing up Encirca, but a lot of these traditional domain investors talk and companies talk about it. They call it kind of a failure of domain company TLDs. And a lot have not renewed with ICANN, etc. I'm not an expert on this, and I just recall overhearing this in some kind of either podcast event or Twitter or something. But I think the idea of using a company name as a TLD, at least in the current Web 2 system, is not as useful as maybe they had thought. Because I think that was a bigger push that maybe ICANN or people within ICANN had been pushing for, and I think it wasn't really well adopted. But I guess my point is, I think in Web 3, there's a lot more tech to it, right? There's a lot more functionality, at least that's what we're hoping for in the future.
what would make
that
you
would
think
make it
that would
more
be
useful.
for Handshake though?
The way I can see it change for Handshake is my company ID. I check into my company with my SLD. I have Shadstone as my main company, and we have a Shadstone. So I'm not using it,
Yeah,
unfortunately, because it's not there. But every
no, but we're not
every team member would
like,
have an SLD, and it would be their like user ID in the systems
all right, but Mike,
across the web.
let's say Apple or anybody else. You're saying that their TLDs on ICANN, company TLDs on ICANN are a failure. Why would a company TLD on Handshake now magically succeed?
I
Because
just
you
answered
don't
that.
have to deal with hundreds of thousands of dollars in fees every year.
Those
So
we're talking
fees, but
about.
not just the fees, but I'm talking about the tech. I'm talking about the utility as a username, as a wallet, as a website, as like a company portal for my team.
As
I
of
mean, it's
right now,
not
you
there
can
yet, but
all the same stuff with an ICANN domain as you can with a Handshake domain. So there's no difference. It doesn't make any sense.
I guess I'm
The
more future
difference
thinking.
is, well,
I'm more future thinking. I'm thinking about AI taking over the world, and I'm not going to trust a Web 2 system that AI bot can just change without being traced, and there's no record of it. I want the AI bot to use blockchain because me as a human doesn't trust this AI bot to do things and not tell me. I want them to have a record publicly of what this AI did to my domain. I don't trust Web 2 with an AI bot because they can just change stuff in a database without telling me or my knowing, and it will affect me as a human being with the AI bot. So
Okay.
when I work with AI bots, I want record on chain of what my AI bot is doing for me
All right.
because I
So
don't trust them.
how you started that sentence is a perfect example of why Handshake isn't growing. You started it with, "Well, for me," and you're not the average person. We are all very techie people here. We're very advanced.
We live in the
Anything that
future, and we're early adopters, but there's called Bridging a Chasm
it's
book I
not.
read in
It's not getting
college.
that. It's about we care about this kind of stuff because we're making it, we're building it, and stuff like that. The average person doesn't care about that. So just
they
because you
care about
use a
experiences.
domain like that, it doesn't mean anything because they can just
They
build
don't
the same.
know. They don't know it exists, man. They don't know the singularity is coming, and their jobs are going to be totally depleted, and they're going to be living on AI, and the AI is going to just tell them what to do, and they can't. We think unstoppable domains is bad. This is going to be even worse. It's going to do what it's going to be uncontrollable. We won't even know what's happening. I want this on a blockchain, on a public record. I don't want this behind some kind of Web 2 platform that I don't know or trust that's being controlled by AI, and no human will even know what's happening. I don't want that. And I think they're going to learn that. They don't know that this is a problem happening very quickly.
Okay.
But I mean, you can say that about any kind of. I'm reading a book right now called Exponential Organizations 2.0. I highly recommend it. It was 99 cents on Kindle. Came out last week, or maybe a week before now. It says in the book, there's a whole page of things like you had just said. We don't, it's like what linear companies talk about with product development. And they said, oh, it's too early. Nobody's going to use it. Who needs that? There's no need for that. There's no market for this. That's all what early adopters do is we build stuff
This isn't a new
that
thing though. TLDs are obviously a thing that have been around forever, and a company worth $3 trillion can afford a couple $100,000 a year for a TLD, and they are the ones that want it. But the companies that don't want it aren't paying
There's
for it.
no
So why are
technology.
we
It's Web
reserving?
2. It's not Web 3. I don't want to build Web 2 on Web 3. I want to build Web 3 on
It
Web
doesn't
3,
matter.
which
Maybe they
is
don't care. Maybe they don't care about the
Hey, bro,
blockchain
your
behind
voice
it.
is
they're going to go
echoing.
bankrupt, man. Google is not going to be around in 50 years. I don't believe Google's going to be here in 50 years. Why do you think Google's going to be here forever? They've only been around for 20 years. I saw when they were. Why do you think
Okay,
Google's going to be here forever? They're going to die like a dinosaur. Like, they're not going to
so
last. Just because they're
okay,
big
so
now doesn't mean they're going to be big in the future. I'm not a
Mike,
slave to Google. I'm not a
Mike,
slave to Facebook, man.
Mike. So if
Just
all
because they
these
got
companies,
money, I don't care they got money.
Mike, if these companies aren't going to exist in 50 years, why are we reserving names for them if they're not going to matter in 50 years anyway?
To bridge the chasm. It's called bridging the chasm to get mass adoption.
But
Look,
that's
why do you
not
think
going.
why do you think Netflix cards were in Blockbuster? Why do you think Netflix cards were in Blockbuster?
Okay. I mean,
Why
look,
would you say that?
clearly
Why would you say Netflix cards are in Blockbuster? That's my question back to you. This is a
we have
Netflix card in a Blockbuster. That's the point of them.
we have years of companies being able to claim names. We have had plenty of companies say we don't care, we don't want it, and you're still assuming that people want it. If they want it in the
Like,
future,
so
then
many
they
people
will buy it in the
will
future.
come back, can come back.
Sure, and if they
So
want it in the
I
future, they can buy it in the future if they're still around. But why reserve it for them? It doesn't matter. They don't care, and they don't even necessarily want a TLD. If we were talking about reserving them, if you're the TLD com, and you're going to move over, and you're going to decide if you're going to have all your current SLDs come over to the Handshake blockchain, then sure, okay, now that's something to think about. But if you're just talking about a random TLD for a company that doesn't have a TLD, that doesn't necessarily want a TLD, that you say won't even be around in 50 years, why do you
I just
care?
think
Why reserve it?
it would be very bad if I could get .google right now in Handshake
I
You would
in the
never be able
current
to get
world.
like
Google
right
because
now.
Google is a TLD. It's reserved.
Or whatever
If
it is, one of those top 100 or
Yeah,
1,000 names or
but
whatever they are.
yeah, right now seeing like every like regulations, everything like going on, everything is going on haywire. So probably it's a good thing to just be on the safe side. Just give them like extra cushion, just for being the safe side. You know, if they won't claim it, like release it after 4 years. Just give them some extra cushion. What I'm saying. Just see it. Look around what's happening with Coinbase, Binance, everyone. That's what I'm saying. Don't.
Yeah, so it seems to be like the point of reserving some of the Alexa names is just a good faith thing for now. That doesn't mean that
Yes.
they will be locked forever like the ICANN names, regardless or not if maybe only 5 of them claim their name. Well, that's fine. In a couple of years, everything else will be available, and people who really, really wanted those names can now get those names. I don't think it's such a big deal to reserve a couple more names for X amount of
Mm,
years.
I
Like,
think it's
I
the
mean,
point
we
is, yeah,
have,
for the short term, so that we don't look like some kind of predator, trademark predator or something like this, you know?
right,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
we,
Even in the talk, they were talking about trademarks. Sorry to interrupt, brother. Like in Django's talk, they were talking about trademarks so much. So it's better to be on the safe side to avoid bad things to happen.
Yeah, Andrew Rosner spoke at a HandyCon a couple of years ago, and he says that's a very critical part of adoption is how you respect trademarks within, especially within domains, but I think any kind of ecosystem. And it's just a turnoff if people feel like it's not respecting those trademarks within larger organizations. That
even
I
if
don't
you
like
do,
them, but I think we need them.
so even for the bigger companies, if they can claim their name, there's still going to be way more companies that are smaller than those companies where their names are going to be taken, and those more people matter more than a couple big companies.
Well, that's why within that same Andrew Rosner talk, he was happy. It was around 2021, I think he did that. He says that he's seeing Handshake people gifting names, and there's still a lot of gifting of names. I feel like culture's kind of faded. Maybe it's also the bear market, but
So if Facebook doesn't go up for auction and I don't win Facebook, who says that I wouldn't just give it to Facebook? I think that would be most of what would be happening if those names do go out anyway.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I know
I
there's a lot of good
would,
people in Handshake, but there's a
Yeah,
lot
I
of people that
there's
put
would,
like 20 million HNS on
lots of
name base.
names.
yeah, I feel like it's better to just be on the safe side. Like who cares so much about like having dot Facebook available to be auctioned on right now? I'm not quite
My
getting that
problem with it
argument.
is just that, like, for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, we have the same talk over and over again about the same people saying the same shit, and nothing is actually being done to actually grow Handshake, which needs to be done. Everybody's just wasting their time talking about stupid shit that doesn't matter.
I mean, that is one of the challenges of a decentralized community, especially so decentralized as this. You know, you could almost say the same thing about the U.S. government versus the Chinese government, right? Like, look at the Chinese government; they create like roads and highways. Look at the U.S. roads; they're like falling apart, and they're sending all their money to Ukraine. You know, I mean, you could say the same thing. What are what's all these politicians? What's all these elections? Why do we need elections? That's what China government says. They tell their people, my wife, they're like, look at America. Look, this is like a joke. They have this democracy and voting and elections. It's all bullshit. Look, they're all falling apart. They have no money. Look at us. Yeah, you can't vote for us, and we pick our own leaders and we do what we want. And but look, we do. That's what maybe Unstoppable Domain says to their team, like Maja.x or whatever his name is. He's got, he's employed by them, and yeah, they're winning right now in the short term. I mean, I'm not. They got more integrations and et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, I think I want to live in a world that has, you know, I guess I'm very extreme. I live in Thailand. I've been in the U.S. for like 6 years. I don't plan to go back, but I'm a bit more of an extremist. But I'd rather, you know, I'd rather do that than have like, I'm like the Gladiator movie. I don't want to like, I want Rome to be given to the people. I don't want to have another dictator in Rome, That's how I see it, and it's harder that way.
Yeah, so to answer Eskimo's question, I think it's possible for people to have these same annoying to you conversations while still working on growing Handshake. The two are not mutually exclusive. Um, it's a conversation that needs to be had. So that's why people are having it right now.
It's really tricky, my son's asking me these kind of questions. He's 9. He's like, like in like a democratic, flat organization, there's a lot of repeating and educating and explaining. It's easier if there's just like one or a small group of leaders that just make decisions and the people just follow it. But we're trying to involve everyone and, listen and read. And, I've even changed my opinion in the last couple of weeks. If it was some sudden thing, I made a, I've been changing my own opinion on various parts. And even on this call, I'm starting to
Same.
model my thought differently, even just now. So it's a bit frustrating, especially I know, Jordan, you're a very talented technical person, especially for technical people. They like, zeros and ones and black and white, and this is gray, right? But I think we've been doing pretty well with these conversations. And we're defining these, like, Save the Doctor has said, we're defining how do we vote? How do we, he says he spoke to you about ways to vote on chain with like TLDs or such. I'm excited to hear that. I think we're just developing this. We're still, well, it seems like a long time to us, 2, 3, 4 years. That's not a long time for most things. I mean, even many of these large $1 billion companies took much longer than that before they had success, especially even Bitcoin. Paul brought up Bitcoin earlier. I'm sure there was these kind of debates on calls with early days of Bitcoin 4 years in. What came out 08, 2012, it was still super early. That was 4 years into Bitcoin. And we're seeing all these centralized ones failing right now in front of our eyes. Solana, Matic, they're all melting on the internet. I mean, of course, Handshake's smaller than them still, but honestly, Handshake coin is, I think, outperformed those Solanas and ADAs and others because I think maybe it's proof of work. It's more decentralized. There's no attack point. I feel a little bit more confident about Handshake with all the recent Gary Gensler attacks and things. Honestly,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just about surviving longer than others, not about thriving. I know we want to thrive, but surviving is also a way to grow. We survive. A lot of my friends have said we just survived the bear market. The ones that will not survive bear market won't be here for the next bull. If we can make it for the next bull, there's means, and I think we're doing pretty good as community. There's like a lot of stuff being built. Of course, to your credit, Jordan, thank you. I wish I could build more. I have something I hope to announce soon that will hopefully contribute to the Handshake protocol. But yeah, it's super frustrating, and I hear your frustration. I'm frustrated too. But I think while it might not seem like progress, I think the last few weeks of this discussions of hard fork, soft fork has been a net positive for our community. I think we've handled it pretty well. I know we have some differences within ourselves, but I think we're all seeing the same. We all have the same common goal, and
Well,
I
I just
think
feel like right now it doesn't matter much because when it comes down to it, the only person that can make the change works at Namebase. So for now, it's whatever Namebase wants to do, they're going to do. We can sit here and talk about it week after week and vote on it. Like Save the Doctor said, they don't necessarily need to follow it. And Richard can just say, well, I think we should do this, and I've put millions of dollars into this, so this is what we're going to do because I'm paying the guy to do it. That's what it comes down to. How can you call
you
it
could say that, but
decentralized?
I don't think the miners would like that, right?
It doesn't matter what the miners like. Richard will just say, well, then we'll start mining. He's
I don't think that's.
100% in control
I haven't
of
spoken
Handshake
to
right now.
direct. I haven't spoken to him directly, but I've heard it mostly through third parties that work closely with the Namebase. I think they want to. Um, they could have made their own unstoppable domains. They could have made their own Web3 domain system. They I believe they want us as a community. I think that's one, and they want to hear from us. And I believe Richard said, I haven't heard it directly from him, but wants the community to take ownership. And I think maybe it's even why he's somewhat stepped back a bit from the Handshake side. And I don't think he wants to make this a dictatorship. I think I appreciate what they've done. They did stand up for Wallet, and I hope I can't wait for that outcome. I think it's going to be in our community's favor. My gut tells me, but I don't think he's just going to tell us what to do, and I don't think it's even really so possible. Because if it's just them, then if everybody leaves the community, I think they would not be able to succeed. I think they need us.
Well, I'm just saying that they could essentially just have Nodar do whatever they want, and we could vote against it, but they could still do whatever they want.
So I want to bring up the point of the fact that I do have some folks that are definitely willing to come in and help with the core deving of the blockchain. I've talked to a handful of people, so, and they're people that would be more than capable of coding this stuff. So just throwing that out there.
Okay, and would they just do that on their own? Would that be accepted, or would Richard say,
Well,
"Well, if you're going to work on it, I have to hire you. You have to work with Nodar." You know what I'm saying?
I get it. I think that.
And another core dev exists outside of Namebase at this point.
Well, I think that's because of funding. So I don't know. I think Mike Carson said this publicly on Mig's Machines YouTube like a week ago at NamesCon. I think they met at NamesCon, and Mike Carson was a little bit disappointed because I think he was or maybe Impervious or whichever was funding Matt Zipkin's salary for a couple of years, I believe he said. And I think he, for whatever reason, wasn't willing or able to fund it, and he was a little bit disappointed the community didn't step in to help fund that to keep that core developer. Of course, he was building on Impervious, but he was also building on the core. So you could say that Namebase or whatever name you want to call that
Okay,
organization or
but what I'm
individual,
saying is,
but they've
if for
stepped
some,
up and kept that going.
if let's say a group of 5 core developers come in and they say, let's help out, what's more likely to happen? They'll get access to the GitHub and start doing it on their own, or they'll get hired by Namebase.
to work on it. What do you think?
So the folks that I know would not work for Namebase. It's not they've got their
Okay,
day
but would
jobs.
Namebase give them access to the GitHub? Would they force
Is it
them to work
I
node
think
Namebase doesn't
there's
RC?
manage
more.
Huh?
Namebase doesn't manage the Handshake GitHub, does it? I mean, Zipkin has
Nodar has
access. There's
No.
access
other.
to the GitHub. Yes,
Yeah, but
Nodar
it's
has
not
access to the
just.
GitHub.
It's not. He's not the only person with access. I mean,
He's the
There's
only
definitely
person
Zipkin.
like
active in the
JJ.
community.
There's
JJ
other
definitely
people with
has some kind of
access.
access.
Yes,
There's
but
JJ.
Nodar is the only person active in the community, and he's the only one with access right now that's active. So if
Well,
new people wanted to,
Zipkin's around. I mean, I'm sure if you were like,
Yeah,
hey,
Zipkin and I
hopefully, I think
chat.
okay,
if we had like
I'm just saying,
five
if
six people,
if we had
I hope.
somebody,
Yeah.
would they give them access? That's all I'm asking.
I believe they could get access whether it's from them or another. Or there's others that have access to that GitHub besides Nodar, for sure. That's JJ, Zipkin. There's got to be. They might not be actively contributing
Even
or working on it right now.
Even
Rithvik,
Rithwik
yeah,
has
that's a good
access, I
one. Yeah,
guess.
I believe he must. Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, it's a great question.
I
It's a
think
good
there are a
exercise
total
to
of
go
15 or
through. I
20
mean,
people who have access.
I
If you check the
I mean,
GitHub, there are like 15 or 20 people who have access to GitHub.
it's a good.
Yeah, I but would somebody new to the community just be able to come in and get access and help out without being
Well, I mean,
advised?
Yes,
new is
yes,
dangerous.
yes,
It's
yes,
but
yes,
they
they
can.
could.
I'm not sure how
All
GitHub works. Maybe
PRs
Paul.
get peer reviewed. It's there.
Go.
I don't understand all the hyperbole. Like anyone could go into the repo, submit a PR, it gets reviewed. Everybody, or many people look at it, and if it's good, it gets merged. Like name base, yes. Namecheap has invested a lot in Handshake, but they don't run Handshake. Like, yeah, they employ several people from the community, but they are not Handshake. This hyperbole is extremely
I'm
frustrating to
simply
just
saying
keep.
that if the only person that's active working on it works at Namebase, then who's to say if I submitted a great change to HSD tomorrow, what if Namebase said, well, that doesn't go along with what our plan is and what we're working on? Denied.
Okay,
Who's
so
to say
you
that's
keep
not going to happen?
Well, then
saying
bring that up. I
if
mean, I'm not so
like
technical, but
what?
I would support. I would speak up, and I'm sure others would speak up. I mean, if that were to happen, I would want to
I
hear
mean,
them.
I have been asking a lot of questions on GitHub and the gist, and not been getting much response back. I will say that, when it comes to the Alexa 101 through 100,000, and Rithik, replied back to a comment on Discord, and that's where we kind of came up with, do we re rank the Alexa 100K or not? And that's where that poll kind of came from, based on a conversation with him in there. So um, I've
I
been
mean, I
hoping for
think
more communication with the dev side, but haven't seen
I
anything.
don't think we can say that's a name-based reason. It's just, I believe, it's a bear
Yeah,
market. I think any kind of
yeah.
crypto project right now is super quiet, and I think Handshake's probably more active than most, in my opinion. I mean, I'm in a bunch of groups and Telegrams and Discords. They're all quiet. I can't. I don't think. I think we got to be a little bit level playing field with our thoughts here, and it's a kind of hopefully late in a bear market. And somebody just says ENS dead, like it was an ENS supporter. It wasn't a handshaker or UDR or whatever. It was an ENS person saying, "Is ENS dead?" And same reasons, like I don't see activity. Da 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 da. I mean, we've got to realize we're late in a bear market. I mean, Handshake, I still think is primarily a crypto project. While of course it does have this traditional domain element, it's still more of a crypto project than a non-crypto project. So I just think we got to be a little bit also understanding, and maybe we should just compare activity to other relative projects. I mean, I'm going to put 15 more minutes on this, at least for myself. I think 2 hours is a healthy length. So maybe with that in mind, we start to kind of draw some conclusion or action points. But yeah, I mean, Eskimo, if that ever happens, please, I know I'm maybe not as active in all the discords, but somebody could reach out to me, would be preferred way to make sure I'm aware of it. But if that were to ever happen, I think the community should make a huge fuss about that. But I don't know if I fully believe that. And I think if Namebase reps were here, I would think they're just saying they're just because no one else is contributing, or that's why. I think that's my gut, because I
Oh,
think Zip.
sure. I'm not saying that it would happen. I was just saying, in theory, if that were to happen, what would the outcome be?
It is a fear. It is, and it still is an early stage project. Actually, it goes to a question from Ben J on Twitter. He's tweeted us. He says, maybe I'll read that. He says like 10 minutes ago, as per Mike's comment, they did say this is an experiment and still states as such on Handshake's page. What do you guys, gals, figure it takes to realize this beyond experimental to a conclusive protocol? Can you touch on this? I don't know. Does Eskimo, what do you think? What would
I
you say this is a
I think
successful or a
doesn't
conclusive?
Bitcoin's website still say that it's an experiment? I mean, I
Maybe, yeah.
I would
Yeah,
say,
it's
yeah, if
true,
you say
right?
it's still an
Yeah,
experiment,
Bitcoin
then
still doesn't have mass adopt. Like, it depends what you define it, but what would you define as a success of Handshake? Maybe is a better, like
I
stable.
definitely wouldn't call Handshake a success as of
I'm not
now.
saying I don't think I want to say it's a success right now. It's still a dream that we are trying to hold together. But when would you say you would call it a success? What's success to you in Handshake?
If there's more content on it, there's a lot of users, and there's a lot of businesses building more stuff on it, then I would call it a success. But right now, I feel like you know the people like us that are building or trying to help it grow are the only people using it as well. I don't think we have any users that aren't builders, and I don't think we're going to get many more users until there's more adoption from browsers or ISPs or
Yeah.
VPNs or so on. So I think we got a long way to go before I would even consider it to be
What I
10% success.
what I always go back to, we talk about how many domains we have, but how many of those domains have content, you know, like how many of them are actually being used.
Yeah.
Mm, well, these sound like good
So more users
KPIs. Yeah, they sound more like good KPIs. I think name-based stats maybe has this. I don't know. It still should be up, but yeah, sites with content, of course, that could be kind of
Oh no, so I actually tried to
abused.
do that. Since I provide like the SLD data for the shake, and then I was going to build a search engine, I scraped basically every single Handshake TLD and every SLD that was ever sold, and I found that basically 20 to 50 sites existed, and besides that, any other page that a TLD or SLD would point to was a landing page trying to sell it. So
Yeah, I know.
it wasn't really anything, and that's why I abandoned like the whole search engine idea.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
Which is why we need content. That should be the
Yeah.
focus more than worrying about the token price or worrying about when we're going to get in browsers. Like browsers aren't going to give a damn unless there's something to point to. No one is going to
100%.
go
Yep.
through the process of building integration for 50 sites.
Well, so that's why I feel like in a browser sense, all we really need is to have Dane. If we could get Dane into the average browsers, then we could go above the browsers to get support. We can go to ISPs, we can go to VPNs, we can go to different DNS providers like Cloudflare and so on, and just have them run, um, you know, HSD in the background, like and do it without the browser knowing about it at all. It's really all about Dane, in my opinion, because when it comes down to it, the average browser doesn't need to implement it. The average user doesn't need to run fingertip. The average anything doesn't need to run anything. It should really be on your ISP's end, like the same way that they provide a DNS server to you right now. They should.
Hmm.
Your ISP is already doing it. All they need to do is just add a handshake resolver on there. And now every single one of the millions of people that subscribe to each ISP in the country would immediately get handshake like that. And most of the ISPs are all owned by the same company anyway. Like Altice owns fucking shit. I don't know, 60% of the internet. The rest is Verizon, you know, at least in America.
Yeah, I mean, there's an article I've read about. It's actually, I think I like David Vorik's stuff, but I think he says, and he spoke. That's why I asked him to speak about it at HandyCon. But you know, centralization is winning everywhere. I mean, not talking about blockchain domains and Web 2 domains, but he even talked about email. Like Gmail kind of took over email, and then I think it was him or somebody. What happens is these protocols have no money, and they get taken over by a big company and then privatized kind of, or maybe you're even making me feel like that as I speak about it. I'm thinking of name-based or name in my head, but what happens is like Google, they kind of like maintain the protocol, but they're like a dominating like Gmail. And he talks about other protocols that become like a privatized system, closed ecosystem. But even Bitcoin, you can speak about the same about Bitcoin. Most people keep it on centralized wallets. I don't know stats, but I think still a lot of them are not, but at least can be used for that, right? Like even email, you don't have to use Gmail, but most people use Gmail. But you can have your option to set up your own mail server, etc. Those are just some points that I'm thinking
Yeah,
about.
and that's perfectly acceptable. I mean, it's just that we shouldn't, like, if we had enough content, then and we got Dane into browsers, then we wouldn't even need to worry about getting people to run fingertip or getting browsers to integrate Handshake specifically at
Well,
that point. I mean,
that's what
Dane
I
is
see.
super useful even for an ICANN TLD. I don't see why people aren't using Dane for everything.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't understand
it's
that one
really just a
either.
monopolistic thing of like fucking VeriSign, pretty much, right? Like
I
it's all
think it's
about.
because I remember JJ talking when I was HandyCon saying that CAs are a racket, certificate authorities. I think they say that's the bigger enemy, or that's the bigger disruption that Handshake's trying to overcome than ICANN. Everybody thinks ICANN, but it's actually these certificate authorities because they just get free money all day for those
Oh yeah,
SSL certificates. They don't do nothing, and they just collect money like crazy. I mean, that is a pretty great business if I was the owner of it. You're just getting printed money for nothing just to be installed on people's computers. I don't even really understand how it works, but it looks like it's like a certificate that's pre-installed on your laptop or your computer.
yeah. So
And
your
that's what,
operating system gets a certificate installed, and then any certificates that they give out to a website is now trusted because you
yeah,
have that certificate on your browser. It makes or on your operating system. It makes no sense to do it like that. Dane is awesome. I mean, Dane is great.
yeah.
You can verify that the person that owns the website or at least has access to the DNS is the one that made that certificate, so you know it's trusted.
I think
Like
I think
it's
it's the
crazy.
certificate. They don't want that because they get their free money. They have their monopoly
Oh
or
my God, yeah, they
oligopoly.
make
They don't
so
want
much
that.
money making yeah, selling the
They would
certificates.
lose all that money, right? The certificate authorities probably don't want Dane.
I mean, but think about how much money they've lost because of Let's Encrypt. You know?
Yeah, I've always wondered about that. I was so happy when that came out because
Oh man,
yeah,
they probably have lost like 80% of their SSL revenue.
yeah. But they want to keep at least that 20, and you still have to get it for certain websites. I've had to buy it for a couple websites too
Yeah,
to
so
have the real.
some are still doing it because like big companies are still paying VeriSign or whatever for their or Komodo or whatever for their SSL certs, and that's mainly because what if for some reason Let's Encrypt gets their cert revoked from Apple laptops or Windows or something, then you're fucked. But the big
Uh,
companies know that that's never going to happen with Komodo or VeriSign or anything like that. They've been trusted organizations for so long. They're not going to get their certs taken off. But Let's Encrypt, it's possible.
okay. Well, I mean, I think that's why Dean is not. And to be honest with you, what I've learned from my experience in Handshake is browsers. I mean, I know you've said it, but their business model, you said, is integration. So they want money from, whether it's Handshake, UD, ENS, whatever. They want money from those apps or organizations.
Their
I think
biggest
MetaMask
revenue
is the same.
is the
But yeah.
search bar. The search bar is their biggest revenue. Whatever what a search engine will pay them to be set as the default, that's where they make the bulk of their money.
Yep. Well, 5 more minutes for me, but yeah, I just think it's got to be massive ground up disruption. Like even the search bar, you just got me thinking like AI is going to disrupt the search bar, or I guess AI is just going to be like one answer. Somebody's showing me some screenshots of Google search result pages with just the AI taking up half the page now of the one answer, and then like sponsored on the second two-thirds, and then the three out of thirds of the page is the free stuff, something like that. Yeah.
I've never even seen AI on Google. I don't know what you're
I don't know,
talking
maybe it's a mock-up or somebody just photoshopping it, but they're just showing like, because I guess what's going to happen is ChatGPT will kind of be, evolve into Google. Google will become what ChatGPT is, something like that.
Hope not, dude.
I think so. I mean, talking about convenience, who wants to go to 10 different search results, go click back, click back? Even Google said themselves, that's why they put the snippets and such. The users don't want to click into the website. Well, it's definitely the Wild West. I mean, I think I appreciate Save the Doctor's time, your efforts. I guess I want to review the voting system. I have yet to catch up on that.
Yeah, I haven't said anything about it publicly yet. I just had an idea of a way to just have fully decentralized voting, but on like the Handshake platform.
I mean, if you want to squeeze it in now, or we could wait, you could share it later. But yeah, if there's a way. I mean, I think somebody said text records on TLDs. I don't know if that's the idea, but
I think Save the Doctor mentioned that.
yeah, I
Someone had
remember.
mentioned that in some chats or in some tweets, and I'd mentioned that possibly that could be a way to do it.
It could be part of it, but yeah, I still have to think about it more. I've just been busy working on a couple things right now, so I haven't had a chance to start the whole voting thing. But I plan on doing it.
I still think we should be proud as a community. I mean, we're all spending our own time and energy doing these calls and building what we're making and contributing how we're contributing. So I think we should also take a step back and realize, even Ethereum, I think, is somewhat threatened. People think Ethereum is going to go, collapse, etc. So I think we should just realize that it's just part of the cycle we're in. Is in a bear market, and we're building, and we're also not just building product, we're building community. I think we're forming ways of trying to find a consensus mechanism, right, within this community. So I think it's I think it's a great exercise we've been going through the last few weeks. So thank you all. Any other last parts? Paul, you want to have anything close?
No. Great discussion. Lots of healthy debate. Let's just keep it moving.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day or morning. It's my kid's last day of school today, so I'm going to go spend my day there, half my day. See y'all later.
Sweet. Peace.
Have a good one, everyone. Thanks for the time.
Okay, take care.